Science has given humanity incredible breakthroughs, vaccines, electricity, space travel, and technologies that transform civilization. But not every scientific experiment was a triumph. Hidden in the shadows of history are disturbing cases where the pursuit of knowledge crossed ethical boundaries, ignored human suffering, and sometimes turned people into unwilling test subjects. From secret government programs and deadly medical studies to experiments conducted in wartime and behind closed laboratory doors, these stories reveal what can happen when scientific ambition operates without accountability. Today, we uncover 10 of the world's most dangerous experiments, chapters of history that continue to serve as warnings about the power and the peril of science without conscience. During World War II, prisoners at the Dachau concentration camp were subjected to brutal hypothermia experiments designed to help German military personnel survive freezing conditions. Victims were placed in tanks of ice-cold water or left exposed to freezing temperatures for hours. Researchers carefully monitored how long it took for body temperature to drop and how long victims survived. The experiments were not intended to help the prisoners. They were designed to gather military data. Many subjects died during the tests, while others suffered permanent physical and psychological damage. Today, the Dachau hypothermia experiments stand as one of history's most infamous examples of science being used without humanity. While Nazi Germany conducted horrific experiments in Europe, Imperial Japan operated its own secret research facility known as Unit 731. Located in occupied China, the program carried out biological and chemical warfare experiments on thousands of prisoners. Victims were deliberately infected with diseases such as plague, cholera, and anthrax. Some were subjected to live dissections without anesthesia, so researchers could observe the progression of illness in real time. The prisoners were dehumanized to such an extent that they were reportedly referred to as logs. Despite the scale of the atrocities, many individuals involved were never prosecuted after the war, making Unit 731 one of the darkest and most controversial chapters in modern history. For decades, rumors circulated about a secret Soviet laboratory dedicated to developing undetectable poisons, known informally as the chamber. The facility allegedly tested deadly substances on prisoners and political enemies. Researchers sought poisons that would kill quickly, leave minimal evidence, and be nearly impossible to trace. Victims were reportedly given experimental compounds disguised as food, drinks, or medication. The goal was not medical advancement or public safety. It was the creation of perfect tools for covert operations. Much of the program remains shrouded in secrecy, but its legacy continues to fuel debate about the limits governments may cross in the pursuit of power. In 1932, U.S. researchers began what became one of the most notorious medical studies in history. Hundreds of African-American men with syphilis were enrolled and told they were receiving treatment. In reality, researchers wanted to observe the natural progression of the disease. Even after penicillin became a proven cure in the 1940s, many participants were deliberately denied treatment. The study continued for decades while patients suffered severe complications, infected family members, and in many cases died. Public outrage erupted when the truth became known, fundamentally changing research ethics and leading to stronger protections for human subjects. During the Cold War, fears of psychological warfare pushed intelligence agencies into dangerous territory. One of the most infamous programs was MKUltra, a covert CIA project aimed at exploring methods of mind control and behavioral manipulation. Researchers experimented with drugs, including LSD, often without the knowledge or consent of participants. Tests reportedly involved patients, prisoners, military personnel, and ordinary civilians. Many records were later destroyed, leaving historians with only fragments of the full story. What remains clear is that MKUltra revealed how far governments were willing to go in the pursuit of psychological control during a period defined by fear and secrecy. Not all dangerous experiments were unethical. Some were simply catastrophically risky. After World War II, scientists worked with a highly radioactive plutonium core, later nicknamed the Demon Core. Researchers performed criticality tests by manually manipulating materials around the core to measure nuclear reactions. The experiments were so dangerous that even a small mistake could trigger a deadly burst of radiation. 2 separate accidents killed physicists Harry Daghlian and Louis Slotin. The incidents shocked the scientific community and forever changed safety procedures in nuclear research. The Demon Core became a grim reminder that even brilliant scientists can underestimate the dangers of the forces they study. In 1971, a psychological study conducted at Stanford University sought to explore how people behave when placed in positions of power. 24 student volunteers were randomly assigned roles as prisoners or guards in a simulated prison. What was intended to last 2 weeks spiraled out of control in less than a week. Guards became increasingly authoritarian, while prisoners experienced emotional distress and psychological breakdowns. The study was terminated after only 6 days. Although later criticized for methodological flaws, the Stanford Prison Experiment remains one of the most famous demonstrations of how environments and social roles can dramatically influence human behavior. In September 1950, the U.S. Navy conducted a secret biological test over San Francisco. Military ships released large quantities of bacteria into the air to study how biological agents might spread through an urban environment. Residents had no knowledge that the experiment was taking place. Researchers later concluded that much of the city had been exposed. While officials argued the bacteria were considered harmless, questions arose after unusual infections and at least 1 death were reported. Operation Sea Spray remains a controversial example of Cold War experimentation conducted without public consent. Between 1946 and 1948, U.S.-funded researchers conducted secret medical experiments in Guatemala. Prisoners, psychiatric patients, soldiers, and other vulnerable individuals were intentionally exposed to sexually transmitted diseases without informed consent. The goal was to study prevention and treatment methods. Many subjects never knew they were part of an experiment. The records remain largely hidden until historians uncovered them decades later. The revelations sparked international condemnation and renewed discussions about medical ethics, informed consent, and the responsibilities researchers have toward those they study. These experiments serve as a stark reminder that scientific progress must never come at the cost of human dignity. Closing statement voiceover: the experiments you've seen today differ in purpose, location, and scale, but they share a common lesson. Knowledge alone is not enough. Without ethics, accountability, and respect for human life, science can become a tool of suffering rather than progress. These stories continue to shape modern research standards, ensuring that the mistakes of the past are remembered trite, not because the most dangerous experiment is the one that forgets the value of the people involved.